from the Formative 5 book, and it's really all about formative assessment in action. So you and your team are going to open up a slide when I put you in breakout rooms. And these slides are essentially 3 slides. The first one is just a blank slide. You can kind of move the pieces of feedback on there if you want. And the next 2 slides, I think, are like A through G or A through F. But I want you and your team to be thinking about, why are we sorting feedback this way? What are similarities, or what kind of connections can we make between the different pieces of feedback? And what do you notice? So you guys are going to have about 15 minutes to wrap. If you're in breakout room 1, you'll do feedback sort 1. If you're in breakout room 6, you'll do the feedback sort 6 slides. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, great. So these should just automatically assign you to a room. And so please just accept it when you get the pop-up. All right. So I loved some of your feedback on this activity, and I heard that this was a little bit challenging, but to be honest, I think that was my point. Is I wanted you to think about these types of feedback that teachers give to students and think about how we would classify them. So I didn't want to give you a ton of information, and I didn't want to like teach you about different types of feedback before this, because I wanted you to just look at feedback and think, is this productive? Is this open-ended? Is it too direct? Is it helpful? Is it help advancing students' thinking? Or is it not helpful at all, right? So I would just love to hear, I want to spend the next like 5 to 8 or so minutes just kind of debriefing maybe some things that came up in your group, and maybe some connections that you made with some of the work that we've already been doing this year, and what you guys thought. Does anyone want to jump out and share? I can share your slide too, if that's helpful. Where are my brave souls out there?
We mix with feedback. The feedback that is actionable is good feedback to kids, because then they can do something with it.
Can you, Jill, maybe give me an example of one that was actionable feedback?
When they said to use another model, see if they could show it another way. Great.
Okay, so that's very, very action, like students can take action based off of that feedback. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What else came up? Guys, we have a small group tonight. There's only 22 of you. We could go around and have everyone share out.
For group 1, we thought the ones where I noticed something would have been helpful. Can you show the slide? I can't remember.
Also, too, one of the other things that we were talking about, Angie, is just using the, hey, I notice, I wonder language with our students, and having them review instead of just holding the answers, saying like, please review your solution. It doesn't make sense. Like, yeah. Well, maybe it makes perfect sense to the student, you know, and instead give them the opportunity to.
Love that, Jen. It's kind of like not coming down with a hammer saying you're wrong. It's saying like, can you share more? Can you explore this a little bit more with me?
Yeah.
It's a good point.
The student does the thinking. And if we notice something, we can say what we notice, and maybe they can elaborate on that, or they could even correct it. Oh, I meant it this way. Okay. But the student's doing the thinking.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherry. Did any groups have like trouble sorting the feedback? It looks like group 3, you have a pretty clear, like cut and dry 2 categories. Do you maybe want to share this one?
We just talked about how like this kind of the same thing that the first gal shared, that one like had more of an action, more of that open-ended, like gave them more thinking to do, higher end thinking, and the other one was just kind of like nice and it was encouraging, but like didn't really like build more thinking. It was just kind of like that validating comment.
Okay. Let's take a look at group Well, group 5, maybe, I don't know if you sorted, oh, action, okay, you labeled yours, actionable, multi-way, needs help. Can you explain this one, group 5, about the one that says it needs help?
Mostly what we were thinking on that one was that it needs more detail. It needs more involvement with the kids. I mean, great job doesn't tell them what they did well, where they can improve. Please review your solution. It doesn't make sense. You're just asking them to go back and look at it. It might make sense to them, but they need to explain that to you. I love how creative your math story is, but it doesn't give you any detail. I really, a better feedback would be, I really love how you did this with this or that with that.
Mm-hmm.
I see that you've written multiplication or fraction word problems. Take a look at this again. Again, you need to have your students explaining their thinking to you. If they're not explaining it to you, then the feedback isn't going to be beneficial.
I love that thought. All right. And then Broom 2, you also kind of sorted yours almost into 2 different ideas. Do you want to share that? Anyone? Breakout room 2?
I'll share it.
Thanks.
So we kind of separated ours like a statement versus a question, and how questions would really like target in their work. Where there were some like we recognized that like statement H was a really good one that had an action, but on the statement side where you can compare and contrast. So yeah, mostly we thought the questions were really good and wanted to put questions into our own feedback.
Cool. Awesome. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about this activity? No? Okay. Awesome. We will jump back over. So I want you tonight, as we're thinking about feedback in the next section, I want you to just have this activity kind of in the back of your brain and think about the types of feedback and what you and your group talked about and what kind of connections maybe come up for you tonight. All right, so do you guys see my slides again? Yes, okay, awesome. So we've been talking a lot about the best teaching practices and specifically all the research-based book Principles to Action. I want you to just take a minute and review these and think about which math teaching practice has been in your classroom this month. So if you were to pick one that maybe you've been working really hard on, or one that you feel like I'm really doing well, or it could be one that you're like, wow, I don't ever use this and I tried it this month. And just quickly type it in the chat. Just take a minute and think about that. So we have productive struggle, which is great, facilitating meaningful math discourse, building procedural fluency from conceptual understanding, facilitating meaningful math discourse, establish goals, implementing tasks. Very cool. And again, I just wanted you to take a minute to reflect on what you've been doing in the past month. We've learned so much since the fall. And sometimes it's nice to just stop and think of like, wow, you know what, this month I've felt really good here, or this month I'm really trying the productive struggle that we focused on last month. So wherever you are, again, it's just that reflective piece. So some are encouraging, but offered. Yeah, very great. Using a question as feedback. Oh, okay. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to actually shorten this quite a bit because we just are for time wise, but I have an article for you guys and it's getting you thinking about assessment. So you're going to do a jigsaw read because it's a pretty lengthy article, but you can kind of just see where it's like chunked out a little bit. I'm gonna only give you guys like, let's say 10 minutes to do this activity, maybe 12. I'll pop in and kind of see how everybody's doing. So I'm gonna assign you to breakout rooms. This is the link for the article if you guys want to pull it up. And then just break it up in between your group members. And you and your group, I just want you to kind of talk about even just big ideas that stuck out to you as you're discussing this with a group, because it's kind of our next launching point for getting you thinking about assessment. So I will again assign you breakout rooms, and then hopefully everyone in your team can just pull this article up and you should be quick to assign it to each group member. So I'm gonna.
I just put the article in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Carol. All right. So you should have a new breakout room to move to.
We needed more time.
I know. I'm sorry.
It happens. We get it.
I popped into a few of your rooms and you guys had some really great questions. I encourage you, if you didn't get to finish their article, that you take some time and read it. I think it's a really great article and brings up some really, really big and great questions. Did anyone have, Brianna, I know you had a big question, but did anyone else have a big question that they wanted to ask or bring up, or maybe an idea? Doesn't have to be a question.
I don't know. We talked about how it sounds like a really good idea, but how do I go from something that we've already been doing for so long? How do we go from taking or looking at all those unit tests or those math fact practice tests and just go to something more open? What would that look like, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Building Thinking Classrooms has an idea of how to do it as a map of all of the different concepts, and that the students drive and understand where they're at on each topic and where they need to practice and where they've got it. So why are we making them do 20 problems on something that they totally have a higher concept on?
Good thought.
What did you say that was? Building thinking.
Building Thinking Classrooms. It is. Yeah, there's a Building Thinking Classrooms meetup that we shared. It's this book. Oh, it's kind of blurry. This book. And it has lots of awesome ideas. Rebecca has, I would say, stuck hard and true to Building Thinking Classrooms this year, and she has tried out all of these steps. And for only doing it for a few months, Rebecca, you're doing a really awesome job. So it's great to hear some positive outcomes for you. Does anyone else want to touch on what Leslie said or have any other questions?
I just wanted to add one thing that like really stopped me as I read it and that I shared with our jigsaw is that idea that trusting us to use our judgment like they do in Finland, right? If your kids walked into a parent teacher conference and they sat down with you and you're like, okay, so when I talk with your student, I can see that they understand these things and not these things. And it was if all I said was, I can see this from their work, from when we talk, from their great discussions in class, I'm not sure parents would be okay with that. Like they want tests. Like they don't realize it, but I think they do too. And we kind of feel that like we need these tests or something to prove what they can do. And I'm not against having them like show their work by any means, but sometimes what we know is from conversation, and a good conversation in a class and a really insightful comment tells me a lot too. And those are harder to document. Because if I've facilitated discourse and I've done all these problem solving and I'm listening in on these kids, I have all this stuff that I can't, as I record class, I can't get it all down on paper. So not all of the knowledge about how a student's doing can be put on a paper very well. I mean, I know Building Thinking Classrooms, someday I'll get to where my check marks and conversations, but even that, I can't actually write down everything they say. And that's a little bit scary for me. It's like, where's my proof that they really are at this point, especially if they can't recreate it later because maybe they're human. Then did I just make up a grade? Do you know what I mean? That's my big struggle right now.
Leslie, that's a really good question. And I'm not going to answer it tonight because I want you to start kind of thinking about it and playing with it. And then we'll bring it up in our next meeting. I'll make a note of it. Okay. All right. So I want to jump in and I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. And then you guys will have the slides to kind of go back and access them, because your task tonight is really mostly kind of on reflection of your assessment. So kind of some of those questions that have been coming up for you. And then also thinking about your feedback. So those are kind of like the two lenses that you'll take at or choose to take at the end of tonight. So I just want to highlight this quote. It says, Hattie calls feedback is the most powerful single influence enhancing achievement. So it is like the number one factor to help our kids achieve more, is the kind of feedback that they're getting, and just feedback in general. So what types of feedback are we giving in class? Are we giving them to the same student? How often are we giving feedback? Those are kind of just like reflection questions I want you to be thinking. All right. Oh no. Wrong way. Sorry. Okay. Oh my goodness. What is happening? Okay. So the feedback cycle. There's really kind of just three parts of it. And it kind of just helps us. We either need to take the next step forward for learning, or we're taking kind of a step back. So we're planning, we're teaching, and we're assessing. And we're essentially doing that all day, every day in our math class. So we are trying to help facilitate feedback for students so that we can plan what they're going to do next, or we might need to teach something. And there's always kind of that, like we said, like that assessing lens of, do they have it or do they not have it yet? I do not know what's happening to this. I apologize, guys. This is, I am so sorry. I don't know why all of a sudden my arrow stopped working. Okay, here we go. So this kind of brings us back to our task that we did at the beginning of tonight, where we were thinking about how could we categorize feedback, and is it student to student? Is it student to teacher? Is it teacher to student? Like, kids are giving us feedback all day long, right? It's just, are we accepting the feedback that they're giving us, and what are we doing with that feedback? The four attributes of feedback are the time, like timeliness, like how quickly are we giving it back to them? Is it the right time to give feedback? If we grade tests and we don't give tests back for a week or two, is that timely? Is that even helpful for them? The type of feedback, which we'll kind of get into a little bit more later, is kind of like a direct, is it open-ended feedback? You guys were saying questions or statement feedback. And then I really think this last part of the attributes is important. Like, who's receiving the feedback? If we're telling the whole class something, it's not a very direct piece of feedback. I know sometimes in classes, we always think about who gets more or less feedback. And sometimes it can be the students that struggle the most seem to always be getting comments from us, even if like other students, right, sometimes need more feedback as well. So that's just something to play around with in the back of your mind, is what's the quality of the feedback in our classroom and who's receiving more or less feedback based off of these attributes. The key question is, does the feedback help someone understand what they don't know, what they do know, and where they go? That's when and why feedback is so powerful. But a lot of feedback doesn't, and it doesn't have any effect. So those three components are really helpful. It's like, did we kind of help them figure out what they don't know and what they do know, so that they feel like empowered and they feel successful about their math knowledge? And then is it kind of giving them that action step? Is it kind of helping direct them to where they need to go? So those are kind of all the three really important parts of feedback to be thinking about. And obviously we cannot be giving feedback to, if you have a class of 26, you're not going to give all 26 kids feedback every single day, but this is just something to be thinking about as you're giving feedback moving forward. Can I give more intentional feedback sometimes rather than lots of unhelpful feedback more often? All right. So that was a little quick whirlwind on feedback thinking. And now the next part is, so this book is called Formative 5 in Action. We are hosting a summer workshop on this book. So if you guys, I hope, all attend our summer workshop in August, you'll get this book. And I am just gonna break this. We're spending all of next year also, if you choose to continue working with ACL, we're going to kind of break this down into really tangible bite-sized steps next year. So I am giving you like a tiny taste tonight of what's inside of here. So when we think about formative feedback, which was the whole idea of your pre-session, was really understanding the difference between formative feedback and formative assessment and summative assessment. And we as teachers should be spending the bulk of our time in that formative assessment piece. And that's because at the end of a unit or something, when we're, like you said, giving a unit test, you guys should be able to know, like, I know exactly how every single kid is going to be doing on this test because I've been looking at their work for the entire month, right? And this is where formative assessment comes into play. So there are 5 steps to formative assessment. Obviously, it's called the formative 5. So the first piece is observations. It's what we are naturally doing in the classroom. We're walking around. We're thinking about what do we expect that students might be doing. And then how are we as teachers going to know if they're doing it? And then also kind of thinking about like what challenges might we observe? And then this observation piece naturally always lends itself into the interview part, which I know I've watched many of you guys in your classrooms, and you naturally are watching kids work together or they're working on a problem. And then you naturally ask them a question, right? Like, hey, can you explain this? Or, hey, does your brownie model match our equation? Can you show me what you did or whatnot? So the observation part is kind of, again, what we're naturally doing, observing students. And then it can extend into an interview. And the interview is when you might just choose to work with 1 or 2 students that day. The interview could be 1 minute. It could be 5 minutes if you want to kind of hear them go through an entire task with you. Or they're thinking of a task or whatnot. So I feel like naturally as teachers, again, we are doing this interview process. But now we're kind of narrowing it in a little bit to think about like what follow-up questions might we ask to students who are not understanding, and bringing in this feedback lens that we briefly talked about tonight to help enhance our interview questions so that we're really figuring out where students are and where they need to go from the work that they're explaining to us. And I'm not sure who said it earlier tonight, but I loved your comment about really needing to listen to students and not assume that we know their thinking based off of their work. I think that's really important. A lot of times we just like look at kids' work and we just assume they don't get it. But then if you actually sit down with a student, we can understand their thinking, and maybe their thinking is totally spot on. So that's where that interview piece is really essential. The next part is the show me. So this is kind of more of a performance-based response. You might actually say like, hey, can you show me, I don't know, a fraction number line model or something. And the show me is different from an observation or interview because observation, we are just watching students. Interview, we're extending, like we're asking questions based off of their work. But a show me is actually asking a student I am prompting them with a task or a question that I want them to explain to me. Like, hey, can you show me how you can make like a 10 with these cubes or something, right? If I was in an elementary classroom. So the show me is I'm physically work with them and I'm prompting them with a question. So this is an opportunity for you to work on student to teacher and also teacher to student types of feedback. This fourth part is kind of the hinge question. And as we start to learn a little bit more about this summer, the hinge question is like the tipping point in your lesson. It's the point where you literally might ask the entire class, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs in the middle, or a thumbs down. Like, where are you with, I don't know, multiplying fractions, for instance? And you might get a ton of thumbs in the middle. And that right there is an opportunity for you to be like, okay, the majority of the class is not with me. So I need to backtrack, or you know what, we're going to diverge and do something else for the next part of the lesson or the second half of class. You know, it's that like moment of where are we as a class? How is the pulse of the class? It might even be just a question that you're kind of working towards through a task. And then you ask this question. So it's kind of that, like I said, it's like a tipping point. So it's kind of providing as the teacher, you're checking for understanding of your students. And the last part is called an exit task. I really like that it's an exit task and not an exit ticket. I think the exit ticket is, a lot of people think about, I need to give an exit ticket every single day. But an exit task is more something that captures an idea of learning. So it might only happen once a week. It might only happen, I don't know, every other week, depending on what your unit is. So it captures the major focus of something, or something for a couple days that you've been working on. It's an actual product, so you're giving it to students. There's something that they're showing you what their learning is, and it also is something that you can use to help you plan. So Shelley, it kind of makes me think of what you were saying, like kind of that piece of evidence, right? And if I had a piece of evidence, such as like an exit task, that could be something that I use to have a conference with a kid, or a conference with a parent and a kid, right? And we're just maybe talking about this exit task. Kind of, I guess you could think about them like a mini quiz, if you would like, almost, if you need to think about it as like a grade, but not as a grade, but you are using it. Because I know some of you guys give a little quiz every couple days. So this, you now can kind of think about it through the lens of an exit task. All right, so in review, it's the 5 pieces. So observations, right? We're observing students, we're checking out what they're doing. And then from there, we might need to dive in deeper and say, hey, can you explain your thinking a little bit more? Or where did you come up with that number model, or whatnot? And then the show me is, hey, I want you to complete this and show me how you're going to solve this problem. The hinge question is that tipping point, like, where is my class? Where are you? Do we need to move forward? Can we move forward? Do we need to backtrack a little bit? Do I need to diverge and do a quick division example because we're stuck on the division part or something? And then the exit task is kind of that actual performance piece where you're having kids kind of sum up their learning or their concept over an idea. So I wrote this little piece at the bottom because I want you guys to mark your calendar. August 6th and 7th, I believe it's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. We're going to do a full 2-day workshop, literally breaking down this book into really tangible pieces for you guys to implement next year, and for you to be able to bring your curriculum with you to the summer workshop and see how you could piece it together with what you're already currently doing. And we'll kind of go from there a little bit more. So I know that was literally the fastest that I could have talked about feedback and assessment tonight. But does anyone have any like glaring questions that they want to bring up?
I do. I think it's really hard to give students that piece of where they're going. And I guess I'm not sure what that looks like. I mean, obviously, so I teach 5th grade, so they're going to 6th grade. So, or do you show them, like in my mind, I guess I'm kind of thinking of it as, because we do like learning intentions and success criteria. So I try to, at the beginning of a new topic, like pick a challenging problem that is likely to show up near the end of the unit or even on their, topic test, and give them that as like, this is what we're working towards. You'll be able to solve this when we're done with the topic. But I don't know that that's broad enough. Like the example in the article was physics and telling this, ours is elementary math is so, like, you do geometry one week and then the next week you might be doing statistics and then you're multiplying fractions. Like it feels really varied and not always immediately connected. So I guess I'm just not sure like how you would do that, what that looks like. Do you want to be really broad or can it be more specified to like that specific skill or unit?
That's a really great question. So when I'm thinking about this, because are you talking about specifically about the feedback part? Like how to give them
Yes.
feedback of where
Yeah,
they're
like
going?
that was the second step was
Yeah.
like where we are, where you're going, and then how do you close the gap?
Mhm. So I would think about it in a much smaller lens than I think how you're envisioning at the moment. So if you're teaching geometry for that week, just think about what your goal is for that week. And then kind of
Okay.
like really make it more bite size, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think that I'm understanding your question, but I would maybe just zone it in a little bit.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if you wanted, I mean, if you wanted to extend a little further, that coherence map would be helpful, like knowing where you're going in the next grade, or, you could go a little bit further, but not quite as far as.
Yeah. Gina, we can pop in and share that with you. Yeah.
Are you talking about the coherence map that we looked at?
Mhm.
It was from the testing website. It was from the
Achieve the
I
core.
know it. Yes, yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
one.
Yep. Nope.
And Carol and I teach 6th grade. I know a little bit about what they're going for next, what they're gonna do next year. But I just don't always know if that's appropriate to share. Yeah, so that helps a lot if I'm just focusing on that week or something. But I've always been like, do they need to know where they're going, like in the grand scheme of things? Like, oh, someday you're gonna pay taxes or you're gonna grocery shop or
Yep. I think all that's really important too, right? Make it context, like have some context for them, because if they have context, they're going to be able to make more meaning with it. So, I just put this up because I thought it was really insightful to just be thinking about assessment is really a big part of instruction. But I think as we, as educators, think about assessment, we're thinking it kind of from the top down. We're thinking about it as assessment because the district told me I had to, because my principal told me I had to, because the state told me I had to do the ISATs, right? And I'm hoping that we can just slightly shift our lens to thinking about assessment is more for us as educators, because we want to be looking through that formative assessment lens. What do my students actually know? Not what does this test show me? So, just some food for thought. All right, so on the navigation guide, you guys have 2 sections. One is examining your feedback cycle. I have a whole chunk of questions for you. I guess I could pull that up. Questions for you to kind of be thinking about with the feedback cycle. And then the second piece I want you to think about is implementing a formative 5 technique. So tonight, I don't know if your brain is in the feedback zone or if your brain is already kind of thinking about the formative 5 stuff. But if it is thinking about the formative 5 stuff, I want you to just pick one of those pieces to try to implement. Like just try, I mean, it's only Tuesday, right? Just try to implement one and notice what comes up for you. think about different ways that your students might respond. How will you implement this technique? When will you do it? Is there a lesson that's showing up for you? And more importantly, how will you provide feedback during that part of your formative 5? So we don't have actually a ton of time tonight, go figure. Feel like that I'm totally off timing, so I apologize about that. But I do want to give you guys at least like 15 minutes to join a breakout room, because I know a lot of you really enjoy that time with colleagues, and just kind of maybe start brainstorming some ideas together. If you prefer to just work on your own or sit in this main room with Carol and I are happy to help brainstorm or answer some of your questions. And then I do have some end like wrapping up materials tonight. So we will come back promptly at 6:25, and I will make sure you guys have all the materials you need and things that I need to share with you for next time. So that gives you a solid 16 minutes. If you would like to join a grade level breakout room, I did put these down here tonight. If you want an open breakout room to work with a coworker or by yourself, or just stay in this room, that's fine. So room 5 through 15, and then I will see you guys back here in 15 minutes.
I have a comment,
Yes, Sherry, go
or
for it.
I need help. I am just very discouraged. I've been the last couple of weeks trying to move this and I can't. Oh well, so I'll look over here. Even though I can't see you, you're over here.
That's okay.
It's like really weird. I hate this. Um, Last week I used the whiteboards like Peter Lilladell talked about, and the kids were doing group work. And I come in today for a math review, and we compartmentalize in the school. So I have 3 math classes, and pretty much every class like totally forgot what I taught. And I had a review because tomorrow we're having a quiz, which just makes me feel awful learning all this. But I know it's the end of the year, but it's just so discouraging when I feel I've tried so hard and coming to the meetings and trying to do what's in the book, and then it's like they all looked at me like they had no idea what I was talking about. And we had a great week last week. That would have been my perception.
Yeah. Are you, well, I would say 2 things. Did you already have spring break?
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like a couple classrooms I've been in, I've been having the same conversations with teachers. It's like kids are crazy right now. It's spring. It's starting to get a little bit nicer out. Do you feel like this has been like all year, or do you just feel like it's because you tried something new last week and that's why you're feeling discouraged?
No, because I've done the standing at the whiteboards all year. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
not every day, but
Yeah.
and I really thought they should do it during fractions just based on the whole book, like how they would work together, you know, just everything that's in the book about the engagement. And so we actually did it twice either 2 or 3, I think twice last week. And really good. Oh, I understand this, Miss Houston. Um, and then today for a review, it was, yeah, like I don't remember anything. I mean, and even my top students, nah, I don't know. Okay, well, tomorrow you have a quiz. I hate to tell you that.
So maybe for the quiz, like you treat it as for the kids, it's like, okay, what do you know? Right? Like,
Okay.
it's like, what do you know? And then kind of go from there and just think about like, could you use that quiz as like, maybe we're going to grade ourselves, you know, like after you kind of
Oh,
like look through it, like you
okay.
could look through it and then you could say, let's grade ourselves. Like, here's an example. Can someone, you know, maybe share their thinking? Okay, how
Mm-hmm.
many people are feeling like, you know, you could use it as a student self-assessment, if you're really feeling like they're not, ready, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what we're learning tonight, it's really I don't feel they're going to perform well, and yet everything. Oh, and that's what we want them to do. But yet that's not what we want them to do. Very confusing. Yeah, like you're not going to perform well. I know, and that's what I'm.
That's what you're
But
feeling
And
frustrated
yeah,
with.
that's what I'm feeling.
maybe they could give each other feedback too, kind of make the quiz more of just a feedback session where, you know, they kind of do the work. They take time with a group, like a group of three, and give feedback to each other, and just, you know, just maybe even reframe it as this isn't a quiz, it's a we're just doing a feedback. We want to see where we're at. You know, we want to give feedback to help each other, and maybe that will take some of the stress off them and you, and
Okay.
maybe that would help as well.
Yeah. No, it's very, and I don't have to have a, you know, I don't have to have a grade,
Yeah.
or I could have it a different way if they're all, you know, have this one part, you know, that would allow me to focus on this other part.
Yeah.
Can I hop in and say there's no breakout rooms for us
Oh
to
my
go to?
gosh, I forgot to click the open them. I just saw that. April, thank you. Everyone's gonna, sorry, guys.
It's okay.
I was wondering, I was like, everyone just wants to chat. So this is
Yeah.
great.
Oh, oh, good. My screen is like real tiny right now, so it looks like I'm the only one. I can't get the. Oh, there we go. Okay.
I'm surprised no, Shelley, no one even popped in to interrupt us.
Everybody is being very polite.
Very polite.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. That's very helpful. And yeah, I can just change it. I can do that.
And Sherry, give yourself some grace because these are all big ideas and it takes
Yeah.
time to get it. I mean, none of us were, you know, as math specialists, we don't come in going, yeah, we had it all down all the time because we didn't. We learn a lot and you try stuff and sometimes it just doesn't work
It
out.
doesn't work. And then you try something else and you're
Yeah.
like, wow, that didn't work either.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you
Free
keep
will always
trying.
work.
Yeah, and we totally get it. So don't ever feel like we had it all down and we don't get it. We get it. We've had flops ourselves.
Okay. Well, we'll find out tomorrow. But I
No,
will
I'm
I
excited
will
to hear
change
how
it.
it goes. And I
Yeah.
think it's also nice to give yourself a little bit of freedom, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to call it a quiz, but you can just, hey, I want to see how you guys are doing. And then we're going to work in small groups like you've been practicing, and you guys are going to go through all the problems and you guys can
Okay.
share your thinking, and you can use it as a collaborative learning activity and an opportunity for kids to learn from each other. And
Yeah.
you can kind of, that would be a good opportunity for you to kind of walk around the room. I'm already telling you, you can do the observations this week or tomorrow.
Right. That's why I was even thinking like asking
Yeah.
questions and
Mhm.
the interviews, I guess they call it, and
Yeah. And
to
just kind of
find
get
out.
to see like, maybe they know way more than they were leading on today.
Yeah.
I swear, sometimes kids like one day you're like, oh my gosh, we mastered this whole unit. And the next day they can't even read a number, right? So
Yeah, and that's what it was. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding.
Sometimes they
So
just need a little bit of they probably know it, but they're just kind of, you know, not engaging or something. And just a little lead in might get them exactly to where you're like, oh yeah, they know it, you know, just a little. So they probably know more than they're letting on, Sherry.
Okay. I hope so.
I
Yeah.
do too. That's what we gotta hope, right? But I bet they do.
Okay. I feel better. I feel better already. Like just, you know, you don't have to take it so seriously. Let them work. It'd be a nice way to even kind of practice this and use it that way. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just,
thank
it
you.
really does take that edge off, that nervousness off you and the kids probably, that, this doesn't have to be high stakes every time, you know?
Yeah. Because in 2 weeks we start the ISATs, which is high stakes,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I wish they didn't have to take. But I always tell them, nobody asked me.
That's right. That's right. Well, and just, make this one just make this one pretty mellow, and when you get to the other one, hey, we just want you to do your best job like you did, a couple weeks ago you were doing, or
Hmm.
and maybe that'll help them kind of loosen up a little bit for it too.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm.
Are we all back?
I don't know. I don't know if she's closing or if we're still working. Let's see what the things say. Let me get a link.
I was listening in on your conversation and it was really helpful. I feel like one of my really big struggles is giving kids like timely feedback. Just there's 27 of them. We have 50 minutes. Like it's kind of like we're just every minute counts. So we're just going, going, going. And
Hmm.
it's really, we've been doing a lot of collaborative work and they're speaking really, really well with Smart Talk. Oh, sorry, my husband's making dinner. Um, and it's been really helpful to have them have that Smart Talk to be able to give each other that feedback. And so
Yeah.
this week it's like I've really not been doing exit tickets for the sake of time, but then saying, oh, this lesson I could do a quick exit ticket and have them give one another feedback. And then
Mhm.
if anybody doesn't still understand, raise your hand, and then somebody who does understand can come support you. So
Yeah, I love that idea of really involving your kids in everything we're doing, the feedback, even in grading, because I think a lot of times we we observe, we look at our kids, we record where we think they are, but we're not involving them in that process. And anytime we can involve them in reflecting on their own work or helping others kind of reflect on each other's work, I think it's huge, you know. They become the mathematicians and keepers of knowledge instead of us owning it all. I love that. Oh, I think you're muted, Jennifer.
I was just talking to my husband. He was like, I'm sorry.
Right.
Using the blender.
Yeah.
No, it's been really good. Like this, like I have an opportunity to give an exit ticket tomorrow. On Thursday, we're doing a really fun collaborative problem. So then be able to say, turn it around and be like, hey, what was one piece of feedback that you gave to a peer that was really helpful to them? And
Mhm.
kind of hear like what's helpful between you guys. And then on Friday, they're going to do a checkpoint, and I was going to do 5 minutes of independent work time and have them kind of just be like, hey, where are you at with this? And then open it up for the next 10 minutes to have them work collaboratively. And then that way, that'll give me time to kind of walk around and give students individualized feedback,
Yeah.
which would
I
be really nice.
Yeah, and I love the idea that you're asking them what their best feedback, what their best feedback was. You're training them in that way too. Yeah, I mean, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. That was the big thing too. Even working with Angie, it's like, well, you guys, we're going to be working in teams the rest of your lives, whether you like
Yeah.
it or not. So being able to work and communicate with one another's a life skill that's absolutely essential. And we can do
Right.
that through the pathway of math, which is pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah. Me too.
Jennifer, what grade do you teach? You're muted.
5th grade in dual. So
Okay, I
are you?
teach 5th grade, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of listening to see how you.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the vertical collaboration during math class. We don't sit down.
Yeah.
But rather than using, I don't have a lot of wall space, but I do have tables instead of desks in my room. So I've got those like giant sticky charts, or just like, it's like butcher paper, but they're like Post-its. And so like they just do all their collaborative work and their problem strings all in that space. And all their tasks are collaborative, which has been really fun. And then they work with their teams, and then they do a gallery walk to see what others like are doing. And I'm like, this is a great chance to like, there's a representative usually left to like answer any questions if you have questions about the work. And it's like, this isn't just like walk and talk. I'm going to chat with a friend. Like our discussion must stay mathematical. And it's been really cool to see their like sharing of ideas and knowing that like not everybody thinks about the math the same way. And it's been really powerful, and to listen to them say, I agree with you, I disagree, like I don't understand this, like where's your evidence? And it's really fun. That last one was all about like, what's your proof, like draw me a picture. So like they have to prove it. So it's like, it's also hard too because my kids bomb assessments, but I'm like, can I like keep their chart paper? Cause they're like crushing it in groups, you know,
See,
but
that's what I experienced last week. They did so well.
yeah, like a bunch of my kids are like 1s and 2s on their tests, but I'm like, when they work together, they're all proficient. So it's like, I'm right there with you. Like they'll
Yeah.
get there, but I think setting them up to function in this way and be able to share their thinking and like be able to show proof of their thinking is more important than like, okay, what are you going to do on an independent assessment where you have
Yeah.
horrible ADD and you don't understand the language,
Mhm.
you know, like it just doesn't, it's not helpful.
No.
So
And how do you like the article that we read was awesome, and but in our constraints, in our grading society, in our,
yeah,
that we have to, how that's one thing I think if we could figure that out, how like I would grade them on their group work and give them a grade so that comes into play. And I'm figuring out how to do that. And because we are confined by grades, still finding a way to help them keep their confidence in math, but doing what we have to do. So I
yeah,
don't know.
I a parent today just saying like, I would love to talk to you about your child and their grades. Like they have a 1 and a 2. And I know you're not going to be happy with that, but that's how they scored on our point system in the assessment, you know, and that's how
Yeah.
like we grade as a 5th grade. And it's like, but in class, their hand is always up and they're amazing and they participate and they're a great team player. And it's just like, I don't want that student to hate math or think that they're bad at math because the way they perform on a test.
Yeah.
Well, and Rebecca, so it's in the building thinking classrooms, how to do it, how he does it with the check marks. I have not done it this year, but they were saying Rebecca did. And she's in our meeting. So I don't know how.
No, I haven't done it. I want to do it. I started putting together a thing for the check marks, but
Yeah.
honestly, it became too much that it's going to take me a while to put it all together.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of it. And honestly, to me, there's another piece that should be part of that check mark system of here's some problems that you can practice on that go with that topic. For
Oh, that's good.
each of the different things, that there should be one so that, if they can do the problem right off the bat, then do they necessarily need to be practicing those? No. But if they're hit or miss on can they get it, then here's some ones to practice with so that they can learn from them.
Yeah. And it was too overwhelming to me to figure it out this year also, but it's in the book.
Yeah.
It's in the book, and I like the idea of it, but am I ready to implement it right now? No.
No.
No,
Oh,
I'm not.
I thought you did. I was like, I want to pick your brain.
No, I like the idea of it. And yeah, if you want to connect, then we can share email addresses or phone numbers or whatever. And yeah, I would love somebody to talk to about it.
Yeah, I'm just going to put my personal email address in.
You can do that. And you can, on the chat, you can send it just directly to me unless you really want to send it to absolutely everybody.
Well, I don't, if you
Sherry,
all
you can share it with everyone if you want.
yeah, I'll share it with everyone. I don't care. I know
Okay.
you're not gonna, but yes, I would love to try to figure something out like that. So it's Sherry.hoop for life. I used to teach a hula hoop class. That's where that comes from. And I've never changed it because my bills are attached to it now.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to wrap up with a couple quick things. Next month is our last session for this year. So, it's May 7th. We just kind of, well, here I labeled it reflections and next steps because I want you to be thinking when you're doing the pre-session, how did everything go this year? What went well for you? What didn't go well for you? And what are some next steps you could take for next year to make some of these teaching practices
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Big Wireless
Sorry.
once again raised their prices.
Where's my pen?
more habitual is what I was thinking. So just so you know, though, May is the last session next month. And at the end of May is all of your paperwork for the stipend is due. And then you guys can also, during this next month, apply for your credit. So in the email that we'll send out tonight, you guys will get a document that has the stipend information again, as well as the credit information again. So, and then the April collaboration exit ticket is very similar to the March, and that's just because we knew that there was going to be different people. So if there's questions that you already answered on that, please feel free to just say like already answered or last month or NA or whatever. And we're just using that as feedback for us. So if you guys don't have any other questions this evening, thank you all for joining. I know it was, like I said, just a taste of feedback and assessment, but I really do hope that you guys can come on August 6th and 7th for our 2-day workshop. It's going to be filled with a ton of really good nuggets of this book and getting you guys to dive in with other groups and kind of work through what that would look like for you for next year. So, anyway, happy April and good luck with ISATs, and we will see you guys at the beginning of May, I hope. And if you have any other questions, like I said, feel free to stay on and chat with us.
Can you put the link to the exit ticket in the chat?
Yes, I can.
Thanks.
No problem.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know that I am not available on the 6th and 7th, like not even anywhere close to internet. Is there any other option for that?
I can think about that. I haven't thought that far. So Debbie, I can keep you posted on that. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness. You're right. There is no, here it is.
I totally second what Debbie says, by the way. I would also love, like, if I'm not in an area where I can do that, I'd love to see another way to try to do it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I am getting the exit ticket right now. I forgot to hyperlink it in the navigation guide, so I will do that now.
I just put it in.
Oh, thanks, Carol.
We'll cut it in, yeah. Sorry, I was trying to tell you. I have it.
No worries. Thank you. Any other questions?
So I'm going to ask, because I'm guessing maybe someone else has the same question. I think Carol answered it before me, but we keep getting emails saying submit your stuff. What does that mean? Submit it where and to whom? Does that go to Angie and we just share the link to our docs with her? And that's good enough?
Awesome. Yes.
Angie Godfrey.
If you send it to Angie Godfrey, which her email should be, well, I know it's for sure on the stipend or the credit form, and it should be on the stipend form. yeah, your stuff is essentially just your IPLP reflection and anything that you want to attach to it. And how you implemented the ACL work this year. So,
So by just sharing it with Angie,
yep,
if it's Google Docs formatted, because right, like what you guys shared with us, I've just been filling in there, and my
Yep.
journal's just a Google Doc.
That's
then
perfect.
we're submitted. Okay.
Yep, that's great. And you can
Thank
just
you.
in your email with her or whatever, just say, here's my submission for my IPL or for my stipend and credit or whatever.
Is the stipend coming straight to us or through our district? Out of
It should come
curiosity?
straight to you.
Straight to you, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Jen, we can do that. Any other questions? No? Okay. And have a great evening.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.